Hey, let's go live for a little bit.
To make all my Lunker Lake dreams come true.
Hello, everybody. Bob Lusk on this steaming hot end of June summer day. It's like 106 over here in Granbury, Texas, where I'm hanging out tonight. Good gosh, it must be summer. So we got a high pressure system sitting right on top of us. So what happens when that happens this time of year? It gets hot. So I spent all day inside today, and actually I've been perched in front of my laptop most of the day, finishing some writing, which I seem to do quite a bit of that. So let's take a little bit of time and talk about some pond stuff. Let me see how many people we got on board. Looks like we got 7 folks. Now you guys know the drill. At least some of you do. In the comment section, hashtag PondBossMagazine. Click like, share this video to your timeline, and you're eligible for a drawing. And we're way late for a drawing. I forgot to tell Leanne today to do a drawing, and but I will do that. And Wesley S. didn't get a lot. I don't know what to tell you about that, dude. I don't know how to play the game. I'm just glad you're here. So if you do those 3 things, hashtag PondBossMagazine, click like, share this to your timeline, you're eligible for a drawing for a Pond Boss hat and whatever other cool swag that Leanne's got hanging out at the office. Hello, Adam Harkness. Glad to see you live. I'm glad you're here when we're doing it live. Hey, $35 a year, Pond Boss Magazine. I'm not going to dig deep into a commercial at the beginning of the show because I don't want you guys hanging up on me. So let's see. We got 7 or 8 viewers. Somebody's clicked off already. I've already pissed off somebody. Well, here we go. I do want to talk about different pond topics today. So one of the main things I want to do today is answer your questions, because I know that there's a lot of them because I've been getting some emails from people. But I've got this pretty cool little exercise I want to go through, and I'm going to show this thing 2 or 3 times. But I got this card from a running buddy of mine. Let's see if you can see it. Yeah, there it is. Okay. So I want you to look at this. And he sits way up high in a leadership position at a giant outfit. And I'm not going to talk about him because you guys would probably know who he is, or at least have an idea who he is, and he'd strangle me if he knew I was talking about him because he's a very humble leader. Hello, Jim Allen. Good to see you, buddy. So what I want you to do is look at this little card. And what you see, oh, look how that boat's kind of waving in the waves. So I want you to kind of study this card, and I'm going to tie this together with our pond management stuff, lake management stuff. So you see the 3 people up front. Now this guy's in a leadership spot, and one of his buddies, a cartoonist, who drew this for him. And he wanted him to understand just kind of the role that he's playing, and just to kind of visualize some of the stuff that he's having to go through. And I'm going to tie this all together with pond management. So you see the 3 green people in the front? They're rowing the boat. They're the ones that are doing the work. They're the ones that are making things happen. Then you see the 4 people in the middle, they're kind of there. They're along for the ride. One guy's testing the water. Somebody else is pointing up at the sky. You know, they're really not dialed in. They're really not participating. Then you got the 2 red guys in the back driving a wedge or a poker into the boat to cause it to leak. Those people in the back are toxic. They're the ones that are causing the problems. They're not helping. The people in the middle, they need a little bit of love and attention, maybe some training, so that they can get their oars in the water and start rowing the boat. So what I want to do is talk about that analogy and see how that applies to your pond. Because one of the things, you know, I've got it in my head and I've got it in my thought process, but what I haven't done a good job of doing is trying to convey these things to other folks. I have seen literally thousands of ponds and lakes over my career. And I mean, I've been around a long time. I first started looking at ponds and lakes in 1980. And I promise you, I can count on 2 hands the ponds and lakes that I considered operating in harmony. to where everybody in the boat was rowing the boat. So what I'm going to tell you is there's probably a 99% chance that there's somebody trying to poke a hole in your boat in your pond system. So I'm going to try to tie that in. Let's see here. This is Mark Baldwin in Streetman, Texas. My wife's phone because I don't use Facebook. Would like to purchase all female bass for a 1 acre pond so it doesn't get overpopulated. The best time to do that is in the fall. So I'll tell you what, Mark, send an email to info@pondboss.com. Mark Williams, you're killing me, dude. Is your ex-wife on that boat? Unless somebody fired her, she just might be. Cheers. Buffalo Trace and ice at the moment. Water. Gotta drink water. My grandkids, that's how many grandkids I got. Look at all of them. Jeez. Wonder where my time goes? It goes to these people. And they're worthy. I'm telling you, worthy. So, hey, Drew, hey, good to see you, buddy. Looks like you got some big things going on up there in Pennsylvania. So, hey, Mark, on your all-female bass, just send me an info@pondboss.com email, and I will tune you in and hook you up with some of the people that can get you those fish this fall. Danny Mack, I'm glad you're here, buddy. I sent you a little message on Facebook Messenger hoping that you would see it. So, hey, guys, you know, it looks like we got more viewers, and I don't know how many people saw this card that I put up. Looks like we got 16 viewers. We're knocking it out of the park tonight. So, hey, Drew, and you guys, I want you to see this, especially guys like Drew Hay. So, you look at this card. You got 3 people up front rowing the boat. You got 5 people in the middle that are just there for the ride. And you got 2 people in the back that are toxic. They're trying to sink the boat. So I wanted to try to use that little analogy that was given to me by a good friend of mine who is way up the leadership food chain and is having to deal with all these different issues. You know, how do you take care of those that are rowing the boat? You reward them, right? So what about the ones that are kind of in the middle that are along for the ride? You train them up or they turn toxic. You get them trained up, you get them enthusiastic, then they help keep the boat moving forward. Then what about the toxic ones? Well, you get rid of them. Bottom line is they're out. They're going to try to sink my boat. They got to go. See you later. So I want to talk about how that relates to ponds. Michael Eric up in Iowa. Deborah Corlew, good to see you. Mike Cottrell. Justin Schenk, have you ever assisted repairing a pond or lake after a tornado? Yes, I have. Believe it or not, I have. It's kind of weird because after a tornado, usually if there's a pond that's been involved in the tornado, it's had added structure, some of which you don't want, you know, like pieces of somebody's house or stuff that doesn't help. But to answer your question, yes, I have. And there's more tornadoes going on here lately. Let's see here. I'm going to get into this discussion, I promise. Mr. Baldwin. Holy cow, I'm getting behind already. Yep. Oh, you're keeping up on YouTube. Okay, cool. Deborah, we're having the Herman brothers. That's excellent. They're great. I love the Hermans. They're just so freaking awesome. Those guys, they've done it right. We've been able to catch only 18 to 20 inch largemouth, large carp, and large bullheads. Oh, well, you know what? Hey, there's an article coming out in the next issue of Pond Boss that is a must read. I got a call from a guy in Wichita, Kansas. Actually, I got an email from him. I'm going to tell you more about that in a minute. Good gosh, I'm already getting distracted. I want to talk about this card for a minute and what harmony means. And I promise you I'll circle back and hit all these topics you guys are throwing at me. So, I'm just looking at this card. I'm studying it a little bit. You know, in your pond, you've got some stuff going on where your pond is harmonious. You know, so you've got happy water. If you don't have happy water, that can be the toxic thing in the back of the boat. So you got to make sure that your water's healthy. We talk about that all the time on these broadcasts. You know, so a harmonious pond has got healthy water, the right numbers and size classes, the right species of fish, and they're all in good shape, which doesn't happen very often. But one of the biggest deals is having the right plant community. So if you got a diversity of species of aquatic plants in your pond, that adds to the harmony. You know, where a lot of guys say, hey, I want to take out the plants. You know, at the golf course, they want pristine looking water that, you know, that's clear and with not a whole lot of plants growing in it to look bad. So, but in a good, healthy recreational fishing pond or fishing lake, you want aquatic plants. You know, the other piece of that is you got the right food chain feeding the right things at the right time. You've also got a good harvest program where you're doing the right things, taking out the right fish, culling the proper animals at the right times to be able to make sure that everything stays in harmony, it stays working. So if you've got a pond that's harmonious, here's what you've got. You've got good, happy, healthy water that you're probably moving either with rainfall flushes or with water circulators, aeration systems, whatever. You've got a good, healthy food chain that's blended in with your habitat. You got to have good habitat for the different species of fish. And then you've got to have the right genetics, which we've talked about that before. And you got to have a good harvest plan. So if you got all those things working together and you're doing your part and you're on the lookout for the toxic stuff, if you're on the lookout for those things that are in red, that are trying to poke a hole in the bottom of your lake, bottom of your pond, bottom of your harmonious pond, if you can be watching for the things that are toxic, just like a leadership program or somebody in a leadership position would do, if you're watching for that toxic stuff, get rid of it. And Drew, you're building a company, dude, so this card is something you really need to study. You know, there's a company that I've been working with quite a bit, and they've got one person in the staff of about 8 people who is 100% toxic. And let me tell you what happens in a toxic environment. That toxic element, whether it's in a pond or it's in a company or it's in a family, can take it all down. You know, so part of your job as the leader of your company or your family or your pond is to be on point watching for that toxicity. And when it happens, you got to do something about it. So in a pond, this time of year, most of the toxicity occurs with the water quality. So when the water gets hot, like it's doing right this minute, it's going to be creating opportunities for blue-green algae growth. It's going to be, when the water gets hot, its affinity for oxygen drops. So even if you have a healthy plankton bloom, if your visibility today, Danny Mac, which I know yours isn't because you got your water flowing, but if your visibility is 12 inches on a day where it's 100 degrees, where 65 million people in the United States are being affected by 100-degree weather, which is normal, by the way, then that's going to set the stage for something toxic to happen in your ponds and lakes. And it's usually going to be associated with the water quality. Now, it can be stimulated by aquatic plants. If you've let your aquatic plants get out of hand, if you've got more than about 25 or 30% coverage of aquatic plants in your pond right now, it's too much. But now you're in a quandary because you got to decide what to do about it. You know, if you're young and healthy and strong or know somebody that is, pull some of it out. You know, so my point here, the take-home point is that you got to be on the lookout for something, the things that can be toxic, whether it's in your company, your family, but since we're talking about ponds, I'm going to keep it right there. So the number one issue with ponds this time of year is going to be your water quality can deteriorate, and it can do it pretty fast. And water's affinity for oxygen drops as the temperature goes up. It can't hold as much. You know, ponds are very, very rarely at 100% saturation anyway. You know, so water at 90 degrees, I think its affinity for oxygen is somewhere under 7 parts per million. So if it's at 85%, that means it's probably at 5.5 or 6 parts per million, which is enough for fish to live. But if you've got way too much aquatic plant life, or your plankton bloom is too dense, or you've got an algae bloom or a harmful algal bloom, blue-green algae, that is a sign for you to take action. So that doesn't sink the boat where everybody else is working pretty hard or in position to. So there's there's your pond speech. So now let me look at this and see what we got going on here. All right, you bet. Deborah, we having Herman Brothers come. Only able to catch 18. Holy cow, what happened here? It jumped away. Hang on a minute, I'm coming. Okay, we've only been able to catch 18 to 20 inch large carp and large bullheads. We have stocked, golly, it keeps jumping. Bear with me, I'll get there. The larger bullheads. We have stocked 1,000 to 1,500 bluegill and over 600 crappie every year for over 4 years now. We cannot catch a single one. They plan to electrofish our 10-acre pond to see what's going on. Do you have any suggestions of what we should ask them when they're here? Well, Deborah, I hate to be the bearer of less than cheerful news, but cheers. But this is a good time to tell the story of the lake in Wichita, Kansas. So I got an email back in December from a guy who says, and this story is a feature story. It's the #1 feature story coming out in Pond Boss in the July-August issue, which will be, I'm late with it. It'll be mailed out probably around July the 6th or 7th. I'm sorry, but I've been tied up with grandkids and all kinds of stuff, family vacation and all that. So this guy called or emails me back in December of 2022, and he says, hey, we're getting ready to buy some property, 5 to 10 acres. We want to find one with a pond on it. What are some tips? So I gave him a little handful of tips, and then I got an email from him in April 25th. He says, hey, we did a little different than what we were going to do. We ended up buying some property that sits on the shores of a 5-acre lake, and I've contacted several fish farms around here. One of them was Hartley Fish Farms, and I think he talked to one of the people that brings trucks fish in from out of state. And he says, man, I'm getting some real conflicting information, so I don't know how many fish to stock. So I said, well, so I emailed him back and said, let's have a phone conversation. So we had a conversation on the phone, and I asked him, I said, okay, so tell me, have you fished? He said, oh yeah. He said, I've caught a little stunning crappie, couple of those, caught a little bitty 6-inch bass. He says, I started throwing some fish food out by hand, and I'm not seeing much activity, but when I stand out there, he says, I see what looks like a few carp roll over the surface. He said, the pond's really, really shallow. So I said, has anybody evaluated it? He says, no, but he says, what I'm struggling with is I don't know how many fish to stock. So I said, well, let's throw the brakes on that. And I got to talk to him a little bit more. I said, there's a retired fisheries biologist that I've known for a long, long time. I haven't talked to him in 10 or 12 years. So I found Leonard Yarick's phone number and had him call Leonard, who came out there the next day. And he says, dude, you don't need to stock any fish in this lake. The water was muddy. It was turbid with what looked like suspended clay. It's an old sand pit. And plus the water had a green tint to it, so it had some kind of an algae bloom. So Leonard says, man, I've been working around these lakes forever. He says, I know these lakes. I know how they work. He said, so my recommendation is to eradicate the entire fish population and start over. So the guy was getting ready to spend about $3,000 on that 5-acre lake to stock it with fish. And so Leonard sampled the lake, and sure enough, there were thousands of gizzard shad, carp, bullheads, and just trash fish. So about 10 days later, they rotenoned it. Leonard got the rotenone. He went out there, did it himself. And if you guys don't subscribe to Pond Boss, you really need to, just for this story coming up in the July-August. $35 a year for this. So I'm going to do the commercial now. $35 a year. Cheaper than a Friday night date. And it lasts a year. There'll be nuggets in each issue. Especially this next one with that particular story. Deborah, you and your circle of decision makers need to study that story. But what they did was they ended up spending, I think, like $1,500 or $2,000 on rotenone, and they poisoned that lake and killed every fish in it. And they sent me the pictures. The banks were lined with gizzard shad, 12 to 15 inches long, big carp. There was a 40-pound plus flathead catfish, There were 2 bass over 6 pounds in this 5-acre lake. Hundreds of stunted crappie that were about 4 inches long, little bit thicker than a postage stamp. Probably not 20 bass. And some channel catfish fingerlings that somebody had stocked in there that never grew. They were like 6 to 8 inches long and probably 4 years old. Well, 2 days after the fish kill, the water cleared up, it turned to green, the bloom ran its course, and now they could see down 24 to 30 inches in the water. They stocked fathead minnows 10 days later after rote noting the fish. And now I talked to the guy earlier this week, and there are literally tens of thousands of baby fathead minnows swimming around in that pond or that lake, and they're ready to stock more bluegill and bass this next fall. So, Deborah, before you guys throw any more money at it, talk to the Herman brothers. Talk to Nate or Justin or their biologist, whoever comes, and take a look at the data. And once you see the data, then it's going to help you decide what to do about it. Because typically when carp and gizzard, shad, and fish like that are able to establish themselves, they're going to take over that pond, and you can try to money whip it till the cows come home, and it won't work. And since you've already stocked bluegill and crappie and all that every year for 4 years, and you can't catch a single one, I bet you that the trash fish have overwhelmed the lake. They may not be eating those fish, but they can sure disrupt the food chain. They can sure take up space. They can keep the water stirred up, and they can wreak havoc to suppress the development of a good, healthy fishery. So there's your answer. I wish it was a better one than that. Come here, girlfriend. Get up here. Come on. Girlfriend's needing some love. Come here. Get up here. Come on. Get up here. Come on. Get up. Come on. Get up here. Oh, there you go. Oh, yeah. There's girlfriend. There's my dog. There she is. Hey, get your hand out of my shirt, will you? Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Get your hand. You did it. I didn't do it. Give me kisses. You're a good girl. Okay, so let's see here. I'm going to keep scrolling down while girlfriend sits in my lap for a minute. Okay, that's enough. Okay, that's enough. You're a good girl. Gooder. Rhonda and Andy Rivers. Can a blue heron do noticeable damage to the bluegill population in a 2-acre pond? No, they really can't. They won't. Now, what they will do, I'll tell you what they'll do, is if you've got bluegill spawning in shallow areas and they've got their nest built, they will darn sure jump up and eat a bunch of those spawning bluegills. So they can't really do a huge amount of damage to the overall population, but they can sure disrupt spawning. You know, now if they're feeding on your fish in shallow water, then what I would do is I would fix some obstructions where they can't wade out there and get into those nests. All right, girlfriend, see you later. You're a good girl. And so try to keep them out of the spawning areas if you can do that, Andy. If you can do that, then you're going to help keep your bluegill spawning. So, hello, Stephen Martine. Matt Marsden, American Fish Tree. Justin Sheen. Yep, I've seen some pond damage. I've seen some tornado damage. I've actually witnessed 2 water spouts, and I've witnessed 1 tornado on the ground, and I've witnessed probably 5 or 6 wall clouds where you can see the clouds swirling but have not come down to touch the ground. So yes, I have. But the pond damage, most of the pond damage that I see comes because the trees get twisted up. You know, get twisted up, uprooted, knocked over. And it's usually a path. There's a path going. It might go right through the pond. It might be 100 yards from it. You know, it kind of depends on that circumstance and that situation. Hello, Tom Alderman. Dave Weber. Nice to see all the usual suspects. That's pretty cool. Ever tried getting rid of geese? Yep, sure have. Not easy. You know, it's pretty funny. The people that I've talked to tell me that for every pound of food that a goose eats, it poops 2 pounds. But there is Larry, it's called, look up Away with Geese. What it is it's basically a rotating laser that you set up at eye level to where it spins 24 hours a day. I don't know what the world that was. But it spends 24 hours a day and if you've got it eye level where the geese are on the lake, then it disrupts them and causes them to leave. So that's a good way to do it. Another way is if you have a big dog that chases them. James Allen, I was wondering if any other lakes or ponds online tonight have noticed a drastic reduction in aquatic plants this year to natural causes over last year. I've not seen much of that myself yet. I've actually seen more. Hello, Dustin. Holy cow, I'm getting behind. From Calvin, Oklahoma. Yep, there's a hunting ranch up there that I've consulted on a little bit. Let's see, I expanded my pond to a little over 2 acres. The entire bank is currently grass. What type of plants would you plant to create a habitat ecosystem? We will not be swimming, and largemouth bass is my target species. You know, Dustin, I'll tell you what I'd be looking for. I'd be looking at some perimeter plants like arrowhead, Louisiana irisista. First of all, to hold your soils in place. For plants to put under the water, if you don't have plants that are growing now, there's got to be a reason for it. Now, since you're rehabbing your pond, there's going to be a seed bank, and part of that seed bank is going to be bushy pondweed, American pondweed, some of the native grasses like that. One of my favorites is eelgrass and American pondweed, if you can find it and get it to grow. What I typically tell people is to allow nature to take its course and see what grows, and then work with that. If you want to have a longer conversation, send me an email at info@pondboss.com, because there's a lot more things that we can talk about with these subjects like that. Let's see. Yep. So there's Mark Williams talking about how to, making noise. Jason Dodd, man, I was just talking about you. I wasn't going to name you, but since you're here, you're certainly welcome to chime in on that situation. Jason Dodd's the guy with the Wichita Lake. So I was just talking about him, but I wasn't going to name him. So here he is, so he can tell you about it. Ian Swanger, what size Aquamax is prime for 3 to 4 inch bluegill? 3 to 4 inch bluegill, I'm going to say Aquamax 500 is about the right size for that. That's about the right size. Aquamax 500. There's Mark Corser. I'm going to see him in a few days. Let's see here. Mike Cottrell, see any fish commercial with a grandkid? That's a great commercial, isn't it? Purina, if you want to look at that commercial he's talking about, it's on the Purina Wildlife Facebook page. So those guys called me and said, hey, we want to shoot a number of videos, and one of them we want to tell your story as a Purina ambassador for our aquatic, fish products. So I thought about it, and we were having cousin camp that week. We had like 6 grandkids at our house, and Debbie was taking them to all kinds of golf lessons, art lessons, swimming in the lake, swimming in our swimming pool, and all that stuff. And I needed to disappear that one day to go shoot some videos with the Purina guys. And so I got to think about it. We got one of these kids that is just eaten up with wanting to go fishing. So I called our host and said, hey, I'd like to bring my 5-year-old grandson. He says, heck yeah, bring him on, let's go. So we did, and when he got there, the Purina video guy said, you know what, he needs to be in some of these videos. So we shot it, and it turned out really, really good. And you can see by the look on that kid's face, his name is Sawyer Milton, my little 5-year-old grandson from Waco, Texas. So Mark, let me tell you about Mark Corser real quick. Mark is British, and he has a hard time understanding my accent, my Texas accent. So, no, he really doesn't. He's pretty good at it. Actually, he's real good at it, way better than me. He understands me better than I understand me. So he's renovating a couple of ponds near Lexington, Kentucky to make them better fishing ponds, because he's got kids that he just really wants that. He knows they're enamored with fishing, and he wants to make it better for them. So he's real passionate about it, burns my phone up. Love you, man. And so we talk a lot. And so been working with him trying to figure out what we're going to do. Jay Spires, howdy, Bob, checking in from Floyd, Virginia. Good to see everybody. My favorite Wednesday of the month. Here we are. There you are, Hardesty. What about trees on the dam? What should I do? Here's what I tell everybody. If a tree is bigger than 4 inches in diameter, leave it. Because if you cut that tree down, odds are high that the root ball is so big that when it rots, it's going to create a void in the dam. And that can create structural issues. If they're 4 inches and smaller, cut them down. You don't want any trees on the dam. Now, if they've been there for decades, leave them alone. Now, if you're a little bit worried about the structural integrity of the dam, and like what Justin Shink was talking about, I did have one pond one time in East Texas where a tornado blew through and knocked down a whole bunch of pine trees in this country rural area, and some of the trees that knocked down were on the backside slope of a dam, and those guys had to go in and because I was a little bit worried. I took Otto with me, and I was a little bit worried that the dam structural integrity could be compromised by that many trees being uprooted, pushed over, and pulling dirt out of the backside slope of the dam. And so they ended up cutting those trees out, taking them down, and going back in and re-bolstering and reinforcing the backside slope. It didn't end up compromising the dam, per se, but they did go in there and fix it to where they wouldn't have any issues with it later. And while they were there, they went in and took out all the other trees on the backside slope. So you're looking at a pretty big ordeal. And it was very interesting to me because that particular piece of land, that landowner had insurance that covered part of the cost, which I'd never thought about that. Tom Davis from Ohio. Let's see here. Where are we here? Deborah Corley, we were thinking all along the same line of killing off all the fish. Thanks, I guess, for the bad news, most likely. Also, we have a lot of shallow water, 3 to 5 foot depth with approximately 2 acres that are 7 to 10 feet deep. Do we need to dig more depth? You know what? While the Hermans are there, ask them to quantify that shallow area. Because let me tell you what will happen. If you kill off those fish and your water is turbid or muddy, and the fish were the cause of the turbidity, water, then what will happen is when that water clears up, you're going to see with sunlight penetration, you're going to see plants begin to grow in that real shallow water. So when you've got a lot of 3 to 5 foot water, 3 feet deep is about right on the cusp of being deep enough. 5 feet's deep enough. But if you've got 2 acres that are 7 to 10 feet deep, but you got like 6 or 7 that are only 3 or 4 or 5 feet deep, it might be smart to look at making it deeper. So before you choose to I tell you, I'm going to give you this advice. Before you choose to roten on the fish, have the Herman brothers see what they can do about mapping the bottom of the lake, or you guys map the bottom of the lake. And it could make sense to do like Mark Corser's doing right now and drain the water off and get some heavy equipment in there to rearrange the bottom soils and create a much, much, much better lake. Now, that's pricey. For a 10-acre lake, depending on the contractor you use, Drew Hay can chime in on this if you'd like, because, there's no way of knowing what it would cost until some more due diligence is done, but it wouldn't surprise me if you're knocking on the door of 6 figures to drain a 10-acre lake, reconfigure the basin of the lake, and turn it into a premier fishing lake. Now, you probably just threw your head back saying, oh no, I don't want to do that. Before you do that, and it's daunting, I know that, but if you've got a great 10-acre lake compared to a 10-acre lake, it enhances the property value immensely. And that could be something you want to think about. Let me ask you this. Has anybody priced a tricked out bass boat right now? Huh? $80,000 for a tricked out bass boat. And you're not going to pull it with that truck. You have to have a $60,000 freaking truck to pull that $80,000 boat. So, and when you pull both of those off the lot, their value goes by at least 25%. then you depreciate it. So if you were to spend a significant amount of money renovating a 10-acre lake, you're going to add value to that property. Now, I don't know anything about your circumstances. You may want to be there until the kids are grown and have grandkids playing out there, whatever, I don't know. But look at it from the perspective of how do you manage it now, which the things you've done aren't working, so you got to do something different. That could be disrupting the fish is starting over, but be sure you're not going to trade problems. If right now you're dealing with a crappy fishery, but if you drain it and now you're dealing with a lake that's got 6 acres worth of aquatic plant growth that you're spending $5,000 a year on to get rid of with chemicals, then what's the point? So I do think you got some thinking to do. If you'd like to have a conversation with me about it and talk about it at length, just send me an email with your phone number and I'll ring your number. Mark Wyman, long time since I tuned in. Good to see you, buddy. Let me see here. Do large perch get too old to spawn? I've had 2 failed years in a row with a lot of 14-year-old 13-inch perch. Yeah, they do. They do get too old. I think it would be smart to stock some new ones. Now before you do that, make sure the ones you can buy will fit into your fishery. Hey, John Henry, I don't care if you're late. Hell, I'm late. My wife's late to everything she does. So, just glad you're here, buddy. Jim Allen, my neighbor's kids bought them a fake coyote to scare off the geese. The geese love to sit on it. That's pretty funny there. Can't drain the pond. It's spring fed from the bottom and refills overnight. Most likely can dig from the sides. That's kind of a tricky deal. Now, I'll tell you this, there are swamp hoes, they call them, which I just said that and it's kind of funny. Swamp hoe. What's a swamp hoe? A swamp hoe is a track hoe that's on pontoons that float. And they use them in the southern part of the nation, especially around swampy areas, marshes and things. I think American Sportfish Hatcheries got one of those in Alabama. So what they can do is they can go around the shoreline and they can create some depth and then use the dirt that they pull out to shore up the shoreline. So there's a whole bunch of things you can do, but I think you need to do some more homework before you do it. There's Peyton Igo checking in. He's dragging a boat from Denison, Texas to Shreveport tonight. He called me a while ago. Steve Thorburn, sorry I'm late, went for a swim with the lab and a coon out in the pond. That a boy, good for you. It's good. Today's the kind of day to do that. All right, let's see here. We'll scroll back up and see what I've missed. Make sure I haven't missed anything. Looks like I think I've got all of it. I don't think I've missed anything. Looks like it. Okay, now, Drew, as you stated, Pond Boss, many variables involved in providing cost, but knocking on 6 figures can be close depending on the individuals. So see, Drew, this is what he does for a living. Part of what he does for a living. He builds lakes. He's got a heavy equipment construction business. And he builds ponds, lakes, Pennsylvania, Georgia. He travels all over the nation. So it'd be good to have a talk with him, and you guys figure out what to do. But Deborah, I don't know how deep your pockets are or what your long-term goals are, but I do think it would be worth some greater conversations. Call me, call Drew, private message Drew. He can talk to you, and you can actually talk to Jason up here and talk about what he's done. Message him. He can tell you what process he went through. One thing that Jason's got, he's got a well. So the lake that he sits on, Jason Dodd, when the lake gets low, he can just fill it full of water. So I think one of the things, Deborah, one thing I think you need to do, you guys need to map your lake. You need to confirm the depths. If you do that, that's going to take you a long way to making a better decision. Hello, Drew Bachman. John Dyer, after a week of strong rain, my pond was muddy, but had a blue streak starting in the middle going towards the drainway. Is that most likely a spring? A blue streak. Huh. Let me think about that a bit. I can't imagine that being a spring. If there's a blue streak in it, It's almost got to mean that that water is warmer than the water flowing in from the rain. So, oh, wait. A blue streak in the middle. I'm assuming that that's the color of the water. Now I'm wondering maybe if it could be some algae. Does it look like blue paint floating on top of the water? You know, I don't know that I can answer that question. I can't imagine it being a spring because this time of year when you get heavy rains, the water coming into the pond, running off from the fields, causing it to be muddy, is going to be warmer than 99.9% of the springs that end up feeding into a pond. So if there's a spring coming into the pond, odds are high that that water's colder, which means it's going to migrate toward the bottom. So yeah, send me a... Okay, I don't know which question I asked that you said yes to. Does it look like there's blue paint on top of the water? Answer that one, yes or no. And then you're going to email me a picture. Well, I've got my phone. If you're going to email me a picture, I can look at it right now and I can tell you. Email me at info@pondboss.com, and when it comes up, I'll look at it. So now, blue paint. Okay, there you go. And I got the answer for you now. If it looks like blue paint, then here's what's happened. When you got that strong rain event coming in, then and the pond turns muddy, what that basically does is it kills the plankton bloom. So you had a plankton bloom, probably had a blue-green algae bloom. If the water's blue, then that means that that blue streak, that blue paint-looking stuff on top, what happened is that fresh rain came in, diluted the water, and it killed that blue-green algae bloom, and now you got dead blue-green algae floating on top of the water. That's what that is. Tyler Markley, going to Branson on a family trip, going to catch some longears. You must be fishing in the river. It's going to be fun. There's some really cool streams and creeks and Table Rock Lake. And can't think of the name of that lake right there. So I'm going to look at John's email real quick if it comes up. It's not here yet. So anyway, let's keep talking about, you guys keep throwing me some questions, but let's talk about harmony in a pond a little bit more. For those of you that have tuned in since then, here we go. I wanted you to take a look at this. The 3 people in the front of the boat are doing the work. They're moving the boat. The 5 people in the middle are along for the ride. They're pointing at the stars, checking the temperature. Yeah, Taney Como, that's it, John Martin. But those 2 red people in the back, they're toxic. So with your pond, you want to be checking out, holy cow, you guys are sending all kinds of stuff. What are you guys sending here? Stars or something? I don't know how that adds up. Mark's sending 50-something. Williams, Wyman sending something. What are you guys sending here? It's tricking me, dude. I don't know how that works. Stars party. Oh, okay. Your audience has been challenged to send stars in the next 5 minutes. Encourage them to reach their goal. Have no idea what that is, you guys. I mean, you people know more about this stuff than I do. I'm just talking about ponds. It converts to cash. How do you turn it into cash? And who gets it? So if people send stars, dude, I don't want to get into that. Hell, I don't know what any of that means. We'll see if that email came. Don't see it yet. It may be in my junk mail. Let me check that. Junk. Oh, there it is. It's in my junk mail. Sure enough. Hey, John, technology, dude. That is absolutely no doubt dead blue-green algae. That's what that is. So that's a good thing. So that blue-green algae died when the fresh rain came in. So, golly, I don't know if I can do this technology or not. Let me look at this here. See if I can show that to everybody. Oh, it's kind of hard to tell it. Oh, there it is. There's the picture that he just sent. Technology. Oh, Jason Nepstad's in on the deal. You guys are killing me. I'm up now. You get freaking, God dang it. Now I got to learn about stars. You people are killing me. So yes, that is blue-green algae, dead blue-green algae. I love you guys. This is so much fun. Okay, Jason Nepstad. Let's see that. Ordered some ghost shrimp online. After ordering them, I read something about certain ones being more tolerant to cold water. Any thoughts on what type are more tolerant? You know what? Ghost shrimp, actually, they're pretty tolerant to cold water as long as they got the right habitat and they go into the winter in pretty good shape. So if you've got some aquatic plants that they can that they can live in and feed on, then those shrimp are going to do pretty good. Now, Jason is near Fort Bragg. He's in Fayetteville, North Carolina. So he's got a pretty good situation. Tell you what, you guys friend Jason Nebstad. He's got some of the freaking coolest videos of bass eating shad and otters swimming under his dock, capturing his bass. This guy, he's got it going on, I'm telling you. Okay, so let's see here. Steve says, tell us about freshwater. Okay, Mark Williams, I'm trying to send you a gift for all of the free advice in your time. I said $99.99 for at 3,000 stars. So it should, as others are doing, giving you basically a tip via stars. For every star, Palm on Chris Blood, listen to you. Oh, good gosh, this is hilarious. Trey Carpenter, good to see you, buddy. So Chris Blood, dude, I might have to call you and you explain this to me because I don't understand that. For every star, Palm Boss gets $100. So how do you collect it? So I don't know. I'm gonna keep talking about ponds and stuff. We'll do this star thing. Send more stars, and we'll sort through them and figure out what it means later. Trey Carpenter is a retired wildlife biologist from the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department who is living a high life at a young age and working wildlife management, fisheries management, doing a great job. And let's see, where were we? Talk more about, okay, how did I get the hell off on stars? Yes, tell us about freshwater shrimp. Okay, there are a number of species of freshwater shrimp. Some of them are actually copepod-looking little creatures. Some of them are actually shrimp. These ghost shrimp are one of the freshwater species, and they're fairly tolerant to cold water. They don't particularly like it, north of the Mason-Dixon line, or they'd be thriving up there. But there's species of shrimp that are regionally thriving, but they're just like any other aquatic animal. They got to have the right habitat. They got to have happy water. They got to have a food source. If they don't have all that, then they're not going to thrive. Where Jason is, his lake has got diverse enough habitat that these chirping things are funny, where they can actually thrive in his lake. Okay, I'm going to keep going here. Larry Hardesty, what does algaecide do for a pond? I can't find pics, but believe it says copper in it. When would you use that? Let me tell you what I would do. There is a great website. It's called Aquaplant. I think it's aquaplant.edu. No, wait. aquaplant.tamu.edu. So the Aquaplant website is produced by Texas A&M's aquatic specialist Todd Sink. And it is fantastic. So it takes you through the processes of what you need to do if you want to control some of these plants. First, you got to identify the plants. So what algaecide does for a pond is copper-based algaecide is used to take out algae. That's what it does. It takes out the multicellular algae like Cara, Nigella, but it also takes out filamentous algae and takes out planktonic algae as well. Water. If you use a chelated copper, it's environmentally safe. If you use copper granules, they have a tendency to collect in the lake bottom or the pond bottom. So I don't like to recommend that anymore, but I really would rather you go to that website and look at all the different choices, because there's so many new herbicides in today's marketplace that you've got other choices, more choices, and you can use the one that's best suited to the plants that you've got, as well as to the pond environment that you live in. Holy cow, I see all these stars coming everywhere. Deborah says if we need to kill off the pond, will it also kill frogs, crawfish, and turtles? It will not kill turtles. It will not kill frogs. It will kill crawfish. It kills anything with gills. So what rotenone does is it's not really a toxin. What it does is the fish and anything with gills breathes it. It causes their gills to hemorrhage, and they bleed and suffocate. So it's not like it's a poison. It just disrupts their ability to breathe. Mark Williams, Dr. Williams from up in Mountain Home, Arkansas. Your brain info is your earning capability. It is like when someone asks me for free medical advice in Walmart. Well, this is kind of like Walmart. This is so much fun. You guys, I love you guys. This is killing me. Tom Davis, conversation around here, now comparing chelated copper products to hydrogen peroxide products to control cyanobacteria. What are the pros? Oh, that's such a great question. I'm actually beginning to lean more toward the peroxide products because they act swiftly and then they convert rapidly. The chelated copper, that's a solid product to take out some of the different species of blue-green algae, but that hydrogen peroxide product is probably better. The pros and cons, the chelated copper is cheaper. They're all temporary. The hydrogen peroxide, I think, it's just as safe and maybe in some aspects safer. I'm speaking out of my lane a little bit on that. So the pros and cons, I can't really address that properly like I'd like to because I just don't know. I stopped paying attention to chemicals a number of years ago, started delegating that. So I would be talking to somebody like Kelly Duffy, or some of the folks that produce those different chemicals. However, if you've got a pond that's in an area with species of plants and fish that are subject to harm by copper-based products, then the green clean, the hydrogen peroxide products are definitely better. Rainbow trout, for example. No copper around rainbow trout. You don't want to do that. And I keep hearing this chirping. You guys are throwing the stars out there. I had no idea what that was. Now, you know what? After we wrap up here in a few minutes, I'm going to have to go look that up and see what it is. Okay, let's see here. Copper sulfate. Yep, okay. Does it help with muck? Not really. Not really. I'll tell you what helps with muck. There's an article, there's more stars. What helps with muck is oxygen content with the interface between the water and the pond bottom. It happens so fast that the muck and the bacteria that are decomposing that muck, it uses up so much oxygen that it can't get enough oxygen there to do it. So that hydrogen peroxide product, I don't know how, you got to get that down in it to do something about it. So I don't know how that helps with the muck. But I know this, if you aerate, you move the water and you can get the interface between the bottom and where the water touches the bottom, the more oxygen you can move into that area, the better it's going to take care of the muck. Jason Dodd, what about black water bugs? They have as many of them as they have minnows. Are they bad? No. As a matter of fact, and Jason, you will do this. I know. I've learned enough about you. And I don't know who figured this out. It wasn't me. But I had an old fish farmer tell me 40 years ago, he said, you know those black water bugs on top? And I said, yep. He said, if you catch some of those and you squish them and smell of them, they smell like apples. So there you go. They do. They smell like apples. I don't know why. So now Jason's going to have to go buy him a damn fishing net, go out there and catch those things and squish some. Yeah, you do need to talk to Deborah. Yep, you guys need to have a conversation. Latham, we found invertebrate nests in our lake. The old internet said it was a product of very clean water. Any thoughts? So I think what you're probably talking about, Latham, over there in East Texas, around Longview, Marshall area, is you were talking about bryozoans. Look that one up. Bryozoans. Bryozoans. They are they only thrive in healthy water, happy water. They can't live in water that isn't healthy. So bryozoans are a sign. They look like kind of like a brain stuck to wood. You know, as you're going by them in a boat, you're looking at them and saying, "What the heck is that?" Well, that's what they are. And I write about them from time to time in Pond Boss. Look at there. Looks like Jason Dodd and Deborah Corley are going to talk about what to do. That's good. For 200 stars, 200 something, Matt Martin says you can get a cage match with Mark Zuckerberg. I can't think of anything I would rather do than be in a cage with Mark Zuckerberg. You need to send me a check. You guys are sending some love. So now I'm going to get to hang up in a minute and go figure out what all these stars are about. Jeez. All right, so hey, you know what? Let's start wrapping this thing up. I'm going to disappear for a couple of months. I'm going to do something kind of fun. I've threatened this for a long, long time, but I've always wanted to just run away from home. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to disappear for 2 months. I don't know where I'm going. My wife is on board. I've got to lose some weight. I got to get in my own head and figure this stuff out. Get my brain space better, as I call it. So I'm looking forward to kind of taking care of Bob for a couple of months. So Leanne was asking me today, are you going to go live while you're on your hiatus, on your sabbatical? I don't know. But I'm going to give her my phone and my laptop. So if anybody wants to try to get in touch with me, that's Leanne will know how to find me, but nobody else will. So I'm going to take some time off. I am going to put together a few more podcasts as soon as I can and get those up. And I don't know when I'm going to come live again, but I will make sure everybody knows and I'll do it. So, hey, let's kind of wrap this up. I really appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. And now I appreciate it. I'm going to mix another little cocktail, I think some Jack and Coke. And I'm going to learn about these stars. So I appreciate everybody checking in. And email me. And we can talk more about stuff. And I'm cutting out on, let's see, Sunday. And my goal is to come back up on top of the radar at the end of August. So, send prayers, and until then, adios. Bye.